Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. Hello and welcome to another podcast of Harvesting Wisdom. I'm your host, Mike McMahon. With me today is the famous Tom Herlihy. Tom and I kind of grew up in the same neck of the woods. He's actually, would you be considered Geneseo? Would that be considered South Towns? Is that where
Southern Tier? No, yeah, it's Finger Lakes.
Is that where it hits?
We're about where it tapers off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we don't get the 100 inches a year. We only get like the 70 inches.
Just a little closer to Buffalo, and you get it.
Right.
But so you are an expert composter. Vermicomposter really is your big specialty, and
Right.
you travel the world, work as a consultant. You've had your own worm operation. You're going to tell us about it. You actually went to school. That's a novelty. Do you read a book once in a while too?
I read many books a week.
Wow. I guess that's our generation. So welcome to the show. First off, of that.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Give me a better background. What motivated you to get into this, or how did you fall into it?
And fall into it is the much more accurate. Like a lot of things in life, you just come to all these little forks in the road. You take a left here, a right there, left here, and then 20 turns later, you look and you go, how the heck did I get here?
And you don't know where you are.
And you don't know where you are. So, but Geneseo, it's cow country. Finger Lakes, heavily agriculture. You say New York State, everybody thinks we're Sex in the City and live in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I have more cows than people in my county. And so I grew up working on a dairy farm, and but I was also heavily into science and engineering. I was, my undergraduate was physics and math, but I loved agriculture. You see an end product to your labors versus, academia. You just put another book on the shelf.
Right.
So, but I found that I always try to kind of merge those two. I've got a lot of intellectual curiosity, but I also like getting dirt under my fingernails.
Well, an engineer is the applied scientist.
That's right.
Scientist,
And physicists will tell you an engineer is applied physics. It's a specialty. The underlying principles are always physics, but then, how you apply them to a specific.
And we talked about this, the old engineers of the day, we were physics-based, and now they're software-based, different.
Especially by the disciplines. Certain disciplines are almost pure software now. But environmental engineering and agricultural engineering is still, you got to, it's
got to get your...
It's much more mechanical. You got to get your hands dirty.
So it's a concrete concept. There's the abstract, but you're bringing it back to concrete, and that's what we do with urban farming education with our education platform is STEM related, taking the phone away from kids, putting them into a garden, and showing them some basic science concepts, and starting at preschool all the way to senior level in high school. And the concept is to get them motivated and curious in order to go into the STEM professions. We talked about this as well. The engineers, there's a lot of different types of engineers, and there's a ton of jobs for engineers.
Right.
But there's not enough people to go into the profession. Because at the same time, we have
and I think
people wanting jobs, right?
But as Hollywood does a bad job, they have one stereotype of what an engineer is, the pocket protector geek.
Right.
You
because still have your slide rule.
I still do have a slide rule, but a lot of it is because so writers for shows they understand writings. That's why there's so many shows about TV shows and writers, and they don't really understand science, and engineering is also not very sexy. They when they show it, it's always these blinding aha moments. Oh, I discovered penicillin.
Right.
And instead, it's very much of building a pyramid. Yeah, it's very much. It is.
And it's failure.
And you build, you do failures and you build on it. You don't usually come up with a whole invention yourself. Especially in engineering, you're refining, things get better. You're refining them. You're taking the pieces and you assemble a new whole rather than coming up with something out of whole cloth.
Right. You're standing on the shoulders of others.
Do not forget whose shoulders you're standing on.
Right. So you were a Penn State graduate school.
For graduate school at Penn State. Go Nittany Lions.
Undergrad is where?
Undergraduate was Wittenberg, a very small liberal arts school. Nope. That's Nesquik, Southwest Ohio, Lutheran affiliated, 450 total in my graduating class.
Yeah, I can't remember seeing that on my list when I was a kid wanting to go to. But,
no, you wouldn't.
How did that take place, by the way?
Financial aid was,
in Ohio, but you're in Buffalo.
Yeah, but it's those Nesquaks, it's the baby ivies of the Midwest, they kind of call themselves, sort of thing. But it was
still in business, that school?
Absolutely. Been around 200 years or whatever. I forgot whatever graduating class number I was. But and so even I got a physics and math, I got a BA instead of a BS because I didn't want to be labeled purely technical. Well, no, it was I can read and write as well, and I have curiosity about things besides just science and
There you go. Okay, so you went to that school. You worked in the dairies.
Right.
Probably not a lot of other activity around the old Geneseo area.
No, there isn't. Delivered pizzas too. But and then after I finished my undergraduate, I wanted to serve my country in my own way, so I would join the Peace Corps.
Okay, great.
And so in Peace Corps, you're an ag guy. I was an agricultural extension agent in West Africa.
And you got
in Niger.
They stick you by yourself in a community.
I was.
That's the part of the Peace Corps I don't even agree with.
Well, it is very much a sink or swim mentality. Again, it's hard to make a generalization for all 80 countries in the world they're in, and everything from being a teacher to an agricultural extension agent. The different, but. Yeah, Niger, we were, 160 out of 161 on the UN Misery Index. And I can remember when that land, a little over 2, almost closer to 3 than 2. And then when that Land Rover drove away and left me in my village, I'll remember that. That's a feeling I'll remember the rest of my life.
I'll bet you would.
Yeah.
We go there all the time, but I'm always love going there. I feel like, Africa's a part of me somewhat, but I'm always kind of ready to move back.
Well, crapping down a hole, no hauling water out of a well, things swam in my water. I ate millet every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I'd like to see millet more. Now they're all maize, which is a horrible crop to grow, and it's a horrible crop,
especially there.
Food, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, what were you trying to do? First of all, did you get respect? You're a young. I'm not going to say you're a punk, but
at the time I was young. Right? Yeah. It was very much. But luckily, I could grow some facial hair, and that usually made you look older there.
Yeah.
But I was rural development and seed multiplication project, so we were working on instead of just keeping 10% of your crop for seeds for the next year, there was actually a way to do some selection of your seeds and grow some seeds.
How are they storing them?
Granaries. It just, whatever was in the bottom of the granary, that was the seed you'd be planting next year.
Okay.
The same thing you ate was the same seed you used to grow with. But growing season there was only 2.5 months. That's your 12 inches, 12 inches of rain a year. And then 40 inches, the other 9 months you don't see a cloud and it's 110.
So what do you do in the other 9.5 months out of the year?
So I built a couple of wells and 2 schools. And then I also would teach gardening. So trying to get them to be able to grow some intensive horticultural crops using the wells that we put in.
Got it. Okay. Sounds
in a little. It's
very
a rural
similar to what we do.
Yeah, you're extension agent.
Community, trying to build capacity.
That's right. And so I had 13 villages. So I had in my
moved around.
Well, they were all within the same county, arrondissement.
Did you have a driver?
Oh no. I had a camel and a horse. That's how I got around.
You actually had a camel?
I had a camel for the first year, and that's the meanest animal God has put on the earth.
I was just riding him a couple of weeks ago, and they got.
Yeah, you get them to go up and down. Oh,
they're soft. Did you have a single?
You had dromedary. I had a camel. You had the 2 humpers.
I had the 2 humpers.
Yeah, that's a dromedary. I had the camel, the 1 humper.
Yeah, well, I think they're technically both.
Are they?
Dromedary is the variety or whatever.
Got it.
The species. But
no. And that, and again, I grew up working around animals, so I wasn't a delicate wallflower around animals. But that is the toughest creature on the planet. Oh yeah. So to get them down, you lean forward and you whack them across the shin, and it sounds like you're playing sticks, and they're after. So I'm the one giving it water and food. I'm between it and the desert. And I can remember I was giving it water one time. And the thing bit me from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. Now they don't have, but it wrecked the shirt and it puckered the skin right off.
Wow.
And I came up with my fist from my ankle. Hopefully the animal rights people aren't going to go after me. And I hit that thing as hard as I've ever hit anything in my life. I heard the jaw click.
Yeah.
And it just went.
You're just communicating. Yeah.
I was letting it know that I've got thumbs, top of the food chain, not you. And that thing shook it off.
Yeah.
And I know that's it.
Yeah.
Tougher than me, and I got a horse.
We saw that they, the Tea Road and the Silk Road.
Oh yeah.
They literally 1,000 years ago, would be 700, whatever it was, would go 1,200 kilometers all the way from, one end of the planet to Spain at the other end, right? They were going
the ends of the known world.
Right. And that was the beginning of everything moving.
Yeah.
Plants, seeds, animals.
And the Tuaregs where I was, we would watch them cross the desert. They could sling a brazier of coals between two moving camels. They wouldn't stop. Wow. They'd go for days. They'd go to the bathroom off the side of the camel while he's still walking.
Yeah.
Eat while, cooking their cheese between little brazier of coals swinging, cooking their tea. And then they'd put the big block of salt on the back of it, turn it around, and
there's some areas just a little north of you in the Sahara, I think, where the nomads
that's the Torah.
Have bags where they put the camel milk and it shakes as you're driving and it turns into that curd, right?
Yeah.
And we were just eating stuff in the Gobi, the horse milk, worst thing I've ever put in my mouth. But we did, horse milk, camel milk, and the horse meat, and it was.
Yep.
I wasn't ready quite for that. And the cheeses and the curds were
hard.
They were rough. They were salty and chalky and strange. But it sounded good on paper and
yeah. Well, and you right.
So okay, so
third world, first world are different worlds.
Yes. 2 worlds apart. So you were in
Niger. So I did 3 years, and then I came back to grad school.
Okay.
And got through grad school, and I thought I was going to work overseas the rest of my life. I really enjoyed being an expat and working overseas, but my wife, thinking getting more than 50 miles from Scranton was adventurous for her. So
shoot, when did you get married?
In grad school, met her.
Oh, in grad school.
Right, and got married on campus. Had to go back to class on Monday. Got married on a Saturday.
Wow.
I actually took Monday off, and I told my advisor I was going to miss his lecture on Monday. He said, "Why?" I said, "I'm getting married Saturday." He goes, "Okay, I'll give you that one."
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Now a millennial or a Gen Z takes a month off for their birthday.
Yeah.
It's a different world, different people.
It is. And so then I had to kind of find a different thing. So I became a consulting engineer. It was the first jobs I got out of grad school where I was trying to combine, again, the scientific curiosity with creative problem solving of real world issues. And so, when you work as an environmental, so it was biological engineering, ag and biological engineering with a master's degree. But I really worked in organic waste management. Anything that dealt with organic, landfills, wastewater treatment plants, composting, mine land reclamation,
right.
Acid mine drainage treatment. I
geoengineering.
Basically, if it stunk, I dealt with it. Organic waste management. It was kind of thing. And that's kind of how I started to fall into composting.
Right.
And so, we all generate organic byproducts from our lives.
Right.
Whether it's food waste, human manure, paper products, we generate a lot of byproducts from our life, and they just need to be handled, right?
We are involved with UFE with the Climate Reality Project, which is climate change, all of that. I have a degree in environmental design, and it's the same kind of concept, looking at these world problems and trying to come up with solutions, usually on a community basis that theoretically can scale, right? But
scale is the key word in that.
But the more and more I've spent time with this, and I started back when I was a puppy as well, the more I realized that it's a social problem because the environment has been affected by humans environment's just fine without us. But so how do we remediate, or how do we slow down some of the things we're doing? And there's this economic component, which is one of the main reasons why we don't do it, right? I mean, we all live on fossil fuels.
Detritivores.
And we would not be who we are without them. I don't want to give up my cars and bicycles and my clothes and my house.
And I've lived in Niger. Right. I've seen what subsistence agriculture, what that life looks like.
It's not all that comfortable.
That's not what I aspire to.
But so the question is, if you're going to make change or impact things, what we've come up with is the social conscience. It starts with, and the environmental understanding starts with children. You and I probably can talk all day long, but reality is we stop listening to other people's opinions. I already know I know more than everyone, right? And you probably do too. So I have my own bias, but kids, they're seeing a new world that's not our world anymore, and they're looking at it differently. But having an understanding, first of all, having that curiosity. It's not political. It's okay, this is your environment. This is the food you eat. This is the waste you're producing. How do you do it better? As I travel the world, you travel the world, I see places where they're doing things better than here.
That's right.
And then people start saying, you're anti-American. No, I'm not anti-American. I want us to do things that should make sense.
Different is different. It doesn't necessarily, you can't put that judgment of good and bad on it.
So the biggest thing I see, though, is the first intervention, which I didn't believe was necessarily, everybody wants to do technology, right? Every billionaire wants to change the world with some kind of techno, change, right? And some of those might work and some of them might be a part of things, but how about if we just don't throw everything away? We don't take everything we have, and in third world countries, in a lot of countries, we dump it into the ocean or the lakes or the rivers. Manufacturing has always been along a river, so it could take water in and put its garbage back in. So how about if we control that? Ooh, that's a loud horn. How about if we recycle organic waste that comes from trees and shrubs and landscape and backyards, from poop, whether it's animals or whether it's our poop? How do we use it all and put it back into a system? And to me, it's the only idea of being what we call now regenerative. Back in our day, I think we called it holistic or circular, whatever it may be. But it starts with that. So what you have to have, I think, is this education platform first. And then it's a matter of having us have the public will to do it. But it's not threatening to big corporations. It's not changing, their modus operandi for a while, right?
Right. Well, I don't like to. Yeah, but I don't like to put black hats on corporations. It's they don't wake up like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons going, "Yeah, excellent, my evil plan is coming to fruition."
Right.
No, they're just driven by
profit
dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And again, but they'll tell you that's their fiduciary responsibility. Their shareholders tell them they have to do that.
They're employing people in our community.
This is the system, so production agriculture is demonized a bit right now, right?
Sure, industrialized.
But we told them, make as many calories as you can, as cheaply as you can.
Right.
That's what you told the engineer. That was the paradigm for years,
Not
right?
necessarily nutritious. That wasn't the focus.
Right.
Feeding people.
So Right. We've got more people now. We get the land base doesn't really change that much. We got the X amount of land, so we got to produce
13% of the planet is arable.
So again, if people operate, when you tell them what they had to do and then they did it, and then you say, but now you don't like the byproducts, it's like, well, you got to let them evolve too.
Sure.
And it's
such a short cycle that we've been on.
Well, and we think in human scale on things that are basically going to be geologic scale.
Right.
We can't, and again, even worse, capitalism works on fiscal quarters.
Today.
Yeah. I do projects and they go, it's got to pay for itself in 6 quarters, a year and a half.
Right.
So if I don't get the ROI in a year and a half, even though it's a great idea, we can't do it.
Investors look daily to see if it's a green arrow up or a red arrow
So
down. That's it.
sometimes it's very hard to meld, we perceive things on this hourly, yearly, my lifetime is forever.
Right.
And it's a blank.
Yeah, it's a.
And so, we set up, scientific method, production agriculture. We really have gone from people spending all of their energy and all of their money on food to now food is like what, 15% of the average American budget?
Yeah. And it's in 50%, give or take 50% of the world, the industrial agriculture feeds the planet, that part of the planet.
1.8% of Americans are working agriculture.
So I call it conventional.
50 to 1.
That's part of conventional. The other part is subsistence farming.
Right.
Because it's 50% of the world too.
Right.
Rain-fed, subsistence. Right. So we've got two extremes. I coined a little term called agrocarcinoma, endo and ectocarcinoma. And so industrial, we use inputs that are not necessarily great for the environment.
Right.
And in a third world country, we're growing crops that are not necessarily sustainable crops. They're
or as efficiently
and they move
the amount of labor it takes to to make a calorie.
And with a lack of any kind of input, they degrade their soil even faster than we do. So one way or the other, we are desertifying a lot of the planet.
And they're at the whims of nature. Ag is, you got to just sit there and take it. It rains, it doesn't rain. The sun comes out, sun doesn't come out. Commodity prices go up, commodity prices go down. Your inputs, it's very, a weird, ag is a tough road to hoe, part of the fun.
When I was a kid, and maybe I was just trained wrong, we called ranching, and farming.
Right.
Now, I hear about people, hey, I'm a regenerative farmer. And what they're doing is they're ranching. And it's real easy to be regenerative farming in your part of the world because you get rain and you got beautiful, nutritious grasses and all the way down.
And the soils rest all winter long.
Right. So, and even where they don't rest as much, like in Kentucky, where we were a few months ago and where we go back, you're growing some amazing stuff. What they're doing is they're making sure that they're moving the cattle now.
Right.
Which
Rotational
is
grazing.
And so now all of a sudden that's regenerative farming. I still think that's ranching, and I believe what they're doing is great, but we're doing a little bit something different with composting. We're using it for row crops. We're using it for orchards, vineyards, vegetables, basically, perennials even. So how does that fit in? How does your concept of regenerative farming with compost actually work?
Right. So the reality is scale is kind of everything in engineering and production. So we've moved away from, 10, 100 cow farms to 1,000 cow farm, which is great. It's that they get in the economy of scale. You can have one guy who does animal nutrition can take care of 1,000 cows now instead of having to have 10 animal nutrition, one vet. There's real advantages to that. But what it has also then do is that concentrates all the byproducts in one location as well. And while it was easy, if there was these 10 farms, you could spread the manure around all 10, it's economical. What the problem is now, you have all this manure concentrated in one spot. And, so the value of the manure is like, call it $400 an acre. But if it costs you $1,000 an acre to go out and spread it, it's a negative value. And that's really what's happened now is these larger farms, what were valuable organic byproducts are now organic liabilities.
What do you think? 80-mile radius? I think that's even maybe too far.
To spread?
Yeah, to get it from
about a half a mile
from your dairy.
Yeah, you go a mile, right? You go a mile away, you're paying more to spread it than you are value getting out of the manure.
That is absurd. So we
that data is from the 90s when I did some research on it. It was about 1.25 miles.
And the CAFOs, we will call them CAFOs. A lot of them are 20, 30, 50 miles away, right? And even 100 miles away from our facilities.
Yep.
There's a little bit of growing going on where we are, but a lot of they're industrial. They're not buying compost to begin with. And so we need to go 50, 60 miles.
So this is where I see the role of compost. So manure, you're mainly hauling water, to be blunt, and it doesn't really, it's very dilute. So what you're really doing with composting, and even more with vermicomposting, is you're concentrating the benefits in a smaller package that's lighter. So you're taking that 1 mile radius, and now you are making it 100 miles, or in vermicomposting, 200 miles. The value of the product, you can now take things from watersheds where there's too many nutrients or too much of this material, and you can now bring it to areas that need these kind of inputs. So it's a way to transform a not valuable material into something that's valuable enough that can offset the transportation costs to get it to somewhere where, again, right around the dairy, those soils are just saturated. They've had manure put on them for where I am, for 230 years, there's been dairies in the valley. Right. But on the other hand, if I could go 2 counties over, higher elevation, the southern tier, and the Appalachians,
the whole thing,
thin soils. The glaciers took all the topsoil away. They would love to have compost, but it's got to be worthwhile enough to do it. And so, really, I see compost as a way. One of the problems with large scale animal agriculture is that a lot of the so the food all gets brought to the animal, so then all the byproducts are right there. But the soils to grow things, again, are this distributed. We concentrate it, distribute it, concentrate it, and you got to be able to go back and forth. And composting, it doesn't require a lot of machinery, doesn't require a lot of inputs. It's really a microbial process. So again, so as a biological engineer, my job is really just to keep the microbes fat, dumb, and happy. Yeah. All I want the microbes to do their job, right? And so I engineer systems that let the microbes do the maximum efficiency for that conversion. Things decompose, but it can take years. Like a tree falls in the woods, it can take 20 years to decompose. Sure. But I can compost that same tree. If I grind it up, mix it up with manure, 90 days it's gone. Yeah. It's just turned into the stable end product.
And you and I have talked a little about this before, and I think we're kind of in the same philosophy. I don't know, it's almost as I grow older and I read more and I try more and I do more, I got this learning curve that's like this. I feel like I'm getting dumber every day. And so generally when I started in this and I was young, I was this environmentalist and I believed, you got to shut down this or do that or whatever. And I was more of a purist. And we both kind of talked. I've moved way more, believe it or not, and most people think maybe I'm a tree hugger, and I am. But the bottom line is there has to be a hybrid solution first.
That's right.
Because it has to be economically feasible. But I've grown food before, so I understand if I have a bug that I see eating all my stuff, I want to spray it right away. If I know during the plant's growth cycle that a little hit of nitrogen is going to go a long way.
Right.
I'm thinking, hey, why not do it? The idea, though, is we want to move towards soil health. Correct. Soil health doesn't come from that much deep tillage. Don't get me wrong. In our soils here, you might have to deep till every 3 years or whatever because we just form calcium pans and so you might have to cut and you might have to layer your composting or your organics, right? So, but you can't begrudge the farmer from making his profits. The idea of compost to me now is that it's part of the soil health
That's right.
protocol, but it can certainly be supplemented or used depending on what you're growing and your choice of rotational crops, your methods of irrigating. All these things are
holistic system.
Exactly, which is the exact opposite of normal. I would say it's a kind of a little against normal training of science.
What they were taught. Well, it's also, you got to excuse when there was, the three, there's physical processes, there's chemical processes, and there's biological processes working in the soil to feed the plant. And, and again, so initial when we were focused on tillage, domestication of animals, by God, we got a lot more calories because, we could modify the physical properties of the soil. Worked great. We still use it. And then, after World War II, with the Haber-Bosch process, we have a way to fix atmospheric nitrogen into the nitrogen that can grow a plant. The next green revolution happened. Well, probably the next one we have now is this microbial is going to be biologically based.
And we've talked
But
about
it
that
needs
as
to
well.
be, but one of the nice things with compost is it actually does help physical properties of the soil. It helps chemical properties of the soil, and it also helps the microbial properties of the soil.
Sure.
So instead of just trying to, again, I look back when I was in school, soil held the plant from falling over. That was its sole role. It was like you put down pesticides, herbicides,
Sure.
fungicides, nutrients, staking it out, killing everything. It was almost hydroponic.
Yeah,
but just doing it in the soil.
It was your container at the time.
Right. But now we realize, and again, this whole idea, so the soil health is also, when I was selling vermicompost and compost to growers, they say things like, that's a healthier plant. It is less likely to get sick. It is less likely to become,
you got your resilience.
It's like people, right? If you have people that are all immunodeficient,
if you're eating candy all day.
That's right. Versus, and so,
sugar,
so that's again, healthy soil can have healthy plants, and then healthy plants might not need that same level of care.
Right.
That you have to do, where you have to take care of everything. Let them, the microbial health of the soil, it can help. The plant can then start drawing its own nutrients out of the soil instead of you having to supply them all.
Right. And I think
that's natural cycling.
We've seen the people at the extremes have certainly, the outliers have certainly helped our understanding of how we do some of these things.
Right.
Although doing full-scale permaculture and trying to feed the world with perennials, it's romantic. I don't know if the biodynamic method where we're looking at the moon cycles and stuff, again, some romantic, and some of it, of course, does work. But
that's right.
But we talk about scale, and we talk about the economics and how this thing is going to go down. So tell me about some of your cool projects. You were just telling me about you got hired by one of the very interesting guys on the planet.
Right. I don't want to. Right. A pioneer in that kind, in the field, who made his fortune in America, and then
North Face. He originally started.
Sure. Yes, and Esprit, and
right. Yes, his wife was involved with Esprit.
And again, so they would go down to in Argentina in the stations, and they wanted to make each of the little cattle ranches more self-sufficient. So that the people that worked on it could grow their own vegetables and produce. You didn't have to bring everything in. And then the food waste would go into these systems where they use vermicomposting. And so they kind of designed these systems around, that would 50 to 100 people, are kind of living and working in the area.
Sure.
And
a lot of the earth is, especially now, everybody moved into urban areas. So these open areas are sparsely populated.
Well, and again, so things can work well when you have to work at that scale. Again, so as a Peace Corps volunteer, appropriate technology. I'm going, my God, we have a well here. We should get a pump down it, and we'll put up a filtration system, and we'll do shock chlorination. Everything that I've been taught that you would need to do to have appropriate drinking water, and you realize that isn't going to work. We'll just have a sand filter.
Yeah.
And I can do, so is 80%, something that they can buy, maintain, and understand, and that's appropriate for a village of 450 people, but you couldn't do it for the city of Phoenix, right? Just doesn't, it wouldn't scale that way. The amount of the land area you would need to have a sand filter to treat the water for 5 million people would, you'd use up 10% of the valley.
So there's a lot of different systems out there that you can, but you have to do it on a case-by-case basis. We're all looking
tools in the toolbox. I said,
the magic pill really doesn't work.
It doesn't.
Right? I mean, you've got different soils here than you have back there. We have different constraints.
Water quality, UV indexes.
Wow, we don't have water. Right.
Soil types.
I moved native plants, including saguaros, 2 years ago when we had the last few years, last 25 years, the heat's been crazy. 2 years ago, saguaros were exploding. Like, it's a saguaro. How does that happen in the middle of the summer? But our heat got to that point, that level. We tried growing hemp, and the hemp, within a week, the entire plant was bleached, and we thought it was all dead. We still were able to harvest the herd, but strange different things going on. And composting is a part of it. I believe in blended compost because
right?
if you're missing a little boron, why not put a little boron in? If you are trying to hold water, put in elements like a zeolite or a biochar that can hold 10 times their weight in water. There's a lot of different things that we do. Sometimes the soil has physical limitations, sometimes nutrient, and almost always biological. But that's part of it.
It is. I mean, there are times when, and again, but the economic aspect, you can't let perfect get in the way of good.
Well, that's true.
So sometimes, I could make these perfect
The
soils.
zealots only
Right.
are there as sounding boards. They don't actually.
I joke is, they want us all to live on a hillside in Vermont and have 3 cows.
Right.
Beautiful if you're one of the people that has the 5 acres of land on a Vermont hillside.
The rest of the planet, which is 99%,
doesn't have that same luxury.
Right.
You couldn't.
So
that system would not transfer.
2 guys who went to school for environmental stuff and then lived their lives on it, where we become more realists.
That's right. And sometimes good enough has to be good enough.
Right.
It's not going to be perfect.
Or move toward a better concept.
Recognize it and move towards it.
Right.
And then, you know what? Then that's right. That's the engineering back to the original thing is then everyone keeps refining it. Right. As long as we all understand, like when the goal was as many calories for as little dollars as possible. That was the goal. And then all the engineering, all the technology, all the advancement went towards that goal. But now if we realize the goal, that can't be the sole goal.
Right. Borlaug really saved probably 2 billion people on the planet in Latin America and in India at that time when starvation was rampant, right? So it worked. And there's a time
scientific method works.
Yeah.
Probably middle age 500 million people is all the planet could support.
Yeah. Whoa, it's
and now we're 7 billion.
We're at 8 billion.
Is it 8 billion? Okay.
Yeah. When you and I were born,
I missed the update.
When you and I were born, it was 3.4.
Yeah.
So that's a tremendous change and it's to me, it's just acknowledging how we're accelerating things.
Right.
Without demonizing industry.
That's right.
Trying to work with industry and try to recognize the things that are so easy to do. To me, recycling is easy. In Korea, we talked about this. You pay for what you dump. So if you are source separating when you dump, your monthly fee for eliminating your trash is way down. That works for you. And on top of that, for the collector, in these compost facilities, the biggest problem we have is with contaminants.
That's right.
And it comes from the fact that it's not source separated.
And plastic, once it's in, is very, very hard to get out.
Extremely costly to go through and try to separate it, and blowers and magnets and
that's right.
And all the things we're doing.
Which are usually a percentage efficient. Nothing is 100%.
Right. So I think, we talk about, and it's interesting, we talked about where you can make money and not make money. If you're not getting tipping fees, you're not seeing compost. The state of Arizona doesn't compost very much. Tipping fees are very low.
Right.
And it's, we're not trying to over-regulate or put a burden or a tax on an industry.
Right.
We're trying to do things that are just common sense. And I think, we're talking about the recycling is, to me, is the low-hanging fruit. It doesn't bother anybody, and it's an easy thing to do. Becomes more efficient. It makes composters and big waste companies,
Waste Management, Republic,
all the big guys. It makes them
do it
more
now.
profitable.
Well,
too.
that's right. They're very happy when they don't have to fill up the landfill as fast.
Sure. So it's
it creates jobs, and it's and it is, but it's establishing those goals and then recognize again. You don't demonize. Like these guys. Conventional agriculture. They're not out. They're not waking up in the morning figuring out how to rape the planet.
They're trying to keep their families fed.
Trying to keep their families fed. This is
show off their equipment.
Right. If I do this, so sometimes they don't. They don't realize that they're on the treadmill. They're on they're on the hamster wheel.
There is one thing that a pure environmentalist would point out, and that is we're still subsidizing things that shouldn't be subsidized. So we need to subsidize some things that subsidies are not the huge thing, for our budget, for the government budget, but they're critical things. Farmers do need subsidy. They need help. It's a really hard profession when you get a drought or you get a
crop
blight,
insurance, right?
if you cannot survive, if every 3 or 4 years you get a catastrophe, no business can handle that. So you've got to have some of that. You've got to have maybe some of the energy production should be subsidized, and some should not be, but it doesn't preclude industry from making profits. And one of the crazy things I see in a lot of documentaries out there and a lot of projects is the wealthy companies, these big companies that we vilify, they're the largest donors for research and development.
Right.
And they're the ones trying different things. And they don't get the credit they need for that they're doing. So, okay. So you're right now spending 200 days a year flying and driving and advising and that kind of thing. What do you see for yourself? Are you going to retire with 3 cows on a hill in Vermont? Are you going to keep working a little bit, or what are you going to do?
I don't think I'm going to be maintaining this pace 5 years from now, would be my guess.
More selective?
Yeah, right now, joke the Herlihy family motto, we like to eat.
You just said Herlihy, not Herlihy.
Herlihy. I said
Herlihy.
I'm pretty sure, well, over the train horn is a different matter. But and it's, right, more picking projects with people I want to work with rather than things that have to be,
or doing things that you can have an impact on.
That have an impact on, and that frankly I'll enjoy more. Maybe I don't have to, trying to plant a flag and make a difference. I do believe in that kind of noblesse oblige. I was born with a healthy mind and a healthy body, an American male in the latter half of the 20th century. I won the damn lottery.
Yeah, you did.
My family, again, compared to even being a king of England in the 1500s, we live better.
Of course, you brush your teeth.
In central plumbing, water.
I'm not even sure, if they brush their teeth yet and when they're not.
So I have felt, again, the part of why I did the Peace Corps, it was, I won the lottery in human history. And so, I should try to give back. I don't mind making $1 and a dime, but on the other hand, I don't want that to be who I am. I could have made probably different financial decisions in my life, but I think when I shave, or, I'm not religious, but, use the euphemism, when I got to go answer to St. Peter at the gate, decides to let you in or not, you were given these gifts. What did you do with them?
Right.
I sold Coke to diabetics isn't what I want to answer.
Right. Well, it's giving forward, the concept of giving forward.
If you try to make it a little bit better than you found it, imagine the cumulative effect of what did you say we are up to? 8 billion?
Right.
If 8 billion people all try to make things a little better than they found it, it doesn't.
Exactly. So now it's a way of getting the avenue to do that. But what I found is when I started my community garden and I worked with a lot of other nonprofits, I just wasn't really aware of all the different things going on in the world and the social problems and everything else. But my motto is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now you've seen urban farming education, and we got to recruit you to use some of that knowledge and that wisdom you have.
Or on the other hand, I've seen what subsistence third world agriculture looks like, and hauling water out of a well and taking a crap down a hole.
Can take your whole day just getting your water.
It literally, and so that's why I realized I had to start eating with a family, or, join the Peace Corps. My job would have been keeping me alive all day. Yeah. That would have been full time.
Oh yeah. That's another way to look at these extremes on the planet still exist.
Yeah, they do.
We don't, but as a planet, as a people, we've moved into central areas, urban areas. We all now watch TVs and computers. We're spending all our time on. And so we're becoming more homogenized.
We are.
And I think there's a point in time, and there's some benefit to that. There's also some negative parts.
Like everything else.
So we brought you in for a couple of days to gain some of your wisdom. We just showed you a little about what we do. You're going to tell me what you do. and then we're to go out to our facilities so you can shame me and
No,
tell me all the wrong things. But that I'm all
see, I don't try to do the right or wrong, because that's a value judgment.
Yeah.
And again, different is different. It doesn't necessarily have to be right or wrong.
Sure.
There are different ways to do things, and then pick a path. It's really where I come. I find most people have a harder time. They come to this decision point. They have a hard time to. They want to keep all options open all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you got to cut it off.
You got to open the door
baby,
and
right?
go through.
They're constantly pairing their
and you get paralysis.
brains.
Yeah. You try to, and again, then that's when you start trying to do too many things at once because you want to keep every option open. Oh, you heard that might work or that might work. A lot of times, just pick one.
Well, for us, part of
it
it is we weren't sure which niche was going to be this most sustainable, so we went into all niches. But
pick one.
Yeah,
it's kind of what you kind of do.
Too.
Well, right, right, not an absolute thing, but yeah, and again, and if you have the right people, I've often said I'd rather have great people and an average idea than a great idea and average people.
I was speaking. Every time somebody comes to me with a great idea, it costs me a ton of money and nothing happens. Right?
People can make it happen, and again, and what makes people energized is when you give them the power over their own decision. So sometimes I try not to always do top-down decisions.
Right.
So I visit all these facilities and all these people. I could come and tell you what to do, but then it's my project. I leave. Like B Square, it was the same thing. You learned quickly.
Same thing with
you didn't want it to be the white guy's project who came roaring into town. I'm there for 3 years and then I leave.
Right. And then everything
it's your project. What do you want to do? Right. And so the same thing with your company. Hopefully, I'll just say, here are some pluses and minuses to these things, and then you're going to pick what you want to do, and then then just unleash people on it.
We will probably do a 5-minute recap when everything is all said and done tomorrow after we've seen your stuff and we've gone out there, and we'll get a shorter version of this. We'll just add it to this. But appreciate you being here today. Tom Herlihy from a part of the world that it's covered in snow a lot. It's got a lot of clouds.
September and October are two beautiful months to be in the Finger Lakes.
But you travel all over anyway.
I do.
So
I know. All places have their beauty, almost all places.
There are good times and there are bad times.
That's right.
Well, thanks for being here.
Very much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.